Good morning. Today we are going to continue with chapter 3. We are going to cover section 3.2. So you should have the following materials ready to go. You should have your cutouts. Let's see, we have a few cutouts today. So if you do have your cutouts, it's going to save you a lot of time. So make sure that you have them with you. You have one, let's count, two, we have three, we have four, and we have five. If by any chance you don't have your cutout, then just go and pause it. Go and make an X and Y axis and then copy it carefully, and then you'll be set to go. I will be looking for your graphs, either your cutouts or the copies of the graphs that you made in order to give you credit for your notes. So make sure that you get your cutouts, don't lose them. Otherwise, just copy them down and we'll set. So let's get started. Let's go and set up my notes. So I'm going to make myself small. Here we go. So we're going to set up our notes the same way that we've been doing all this time. We are going to make a left margin 6, 2, 4, 6. That will be sufficient for what we need to do. We're going to use our margin just to be able to make a notation, little comments, and just be careful. The notes for today is section 3.2, slope of a line. Overlay. And you covered this last year. So these are concepts that you learned last year. Now, we are going to place cutout 1 and 2 right next to each other. So let's go and take the time to cut them. Otherwise, take the time to copy it once. And you can pause it if you need to. We're going to have 1 and 2. And I know what you're saying. I say, well, how come they're not right next to each other? Not too sure why. But make sure that you get a glue stick. Or you can use tape as well if you want. I actually prefer to use glue stick. And I can do it on a separate piece of paper, or just don't glue it on your notebook. You know what happened last time. So therefore, our first cutout goes here. Make sure that you get the corners, and this time I did. Our second cutout will go right below it. Make sure to get each of the corners. Those are the ones that are going to lift up. I'll do the corners once again. Usually, there you go. So we have one, and then we should have your two cutouts. If by any chance you don't have your cutouts, go and take the time to pause it now so you can copy it down. Use your ruler so you can make nice graphs. And once you're ready, you can continue. But for now, go and pause it. And we have, this is the camera. That is perfect. So we have slope of a line. The slope m. So we know that we write down the slope. We identify as the letter m for slope of a non-vertical line passing through the points x1, y1, and the second point x2, y2 is the ratio of the rise to the run. So that is a key thing that you have to remember. The slope is the ratio of the rise versus the run. And that's how you guys learned it last year, remember? Rise over run. So we're going to go up into the right or down into the right. So it's always either up or down and then to the right. So for example, the slope of this line. You always want to start with the point further to the left. So therefore, I'm going to start with this point. I'm going to do it in red. I want to get from one point to the other. And I'm going to go and make my bubbles to make it easier for ourselves to be able to identify the slope. So I'm going to go from here. I'm going to go up. How many times do I need to go up? 1, 2. So that'll be, and I went up. So therefore, it'll be positive 2. And to the right, 1, 2, 3. Positive 3. So therefore, my slope is my rise over the run. So in this case, will be the rise is 2 over the run is 3 So therefore my slope is 2 over 3. But we also know that we can actually use this formula up there, which is the difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. The difference of the y's is going to tell us the rise. The difference of the x's is going to tell us the run. Do you remember this formula from last year? Classification of slopes. We can classify the slopes in 4 different ways. We can have a positive slope, a negative slope, a zero slope, or undefined. I'll make myself huge. There. So therefore we can have it where we have a, if you're going up, so if you actually draw someone walking on the line, therefore remember we're walking from left to right. If we are walking up, that's going to have a positive slope. Go ahead and highlight the word positive. Positive slope. If you are drawing someone and that person is walking down, in this case we are walking down, that's going to be a negative slope. Zero slope is when we have a horizontal line, that's going to be a zero slope. And the way that I remember, I think of the word zero. So zero is from left to right is going to be a zero slope. You see it? Zero. So whenever it's a horizontal line, the slope is zero. If it's a vertical line, it's undefined. Sometimes we say that there is no slope, depending on the book that you are using and the way I always remember of the n. That means that there's no slope. The slope is undefined. And we're going to talk about that. What happens when we are using this formula? What happens whenever it's undefined and zero slope? So zero slope, there's a slope and the slope is zero. Whenever it's a vertical line, there's no slope because the slope is undefined. There's no definition for it. So let's go through example number 1. And on example number 1, we are going to use your cutouts. Now, if you don't have your cutouts, make sure you get one from Santa Fe. Ask me next time you see me, or you can just copy it down. So in this case, we're going to use example number 1, which is here. And I'm going to trim it nice and neat. And I don't need to separate them. I'm going to go and glue them all at once. And it'll make our life a little bit easier. And I'm just going to go sideways. Perfect. This is good enough for us. So now let's go and glue it. Or otherwise, go and pause it once I'm done. Copy it down. Make a 5x5 graph, just like we've done before on the previous section. I'm going to get all my corners. Make sure I get every corner once or twice. And now I'm just going to glue underneath. That should save you guys some time. Excellent. So in this case, we need to go and pause it. If you need to copy them down, just do a quick 5x5 graph, just like we usually have done. So if you don't have the glasses now, big deal, because you can just use your ruler. Just make a 5x5 graph, 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5, and then you have your first graph. And then you just copy the point, the other point, and then you can just make a quick graph. So copying them graphs is not, but if you are going to copy the graphs, you want to make sure that you make a ruler. You might use a little more space, but you have plenty of space in this next 2 pages. So now I need to be able to identify the slope of the line. So let's go and call this A, this one B, and that one C, so we can refer back to them. So first I need to be able to decide, is my slope going to be positive or is my slope going to be negative? Is this a positive slope or negative slope? So just think, if you are walking on the line, which way is it walking? Up is the stick figure. That is your slope. You're walking up, so therefore your slope will be positive. your slope is going to be a fraction. It's going to be the rise over the run. So therefore, if I start at, you can start from this point, that point, that point, whichever point you prefer. If it crosses the y-axis, I prefer to start from that point. So I'll start from here. And then I'm going to go to this point. So therefore, how many times do I need to go up? 1, 2, so plus 2. And to the right, how many? 1, so plus 1. Your slope is your rise over your run. The difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. In this case, how many times did I go up? I went up 2. How many times did I go to the right? 1. So therefore, I can simplify as my slope being 2. So let me write down my m equal to 2. And just box in your answer. So you can leave it as 2 over 1, but we prefer it as 2. How about for letter B? Is your slope positive or negative? So in this case, the line is going down, so your slope is negative. So when I write down my m, it's going to be a negative, and then it's going to be a fraction. I'm always going to start ideally with a point that's on the y-axis. So I'm going to start with this point. I'll get from here, I'm going to go to the next one over here. So how many times do I need to go down? That is something that you need to think about. Let's see. To get from this point to that point, I need to go down 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to write down 3. And how many times to the right? I need to go 1, 2. So this is 3, and this is 2. Now notice that it's going down, so as negative 3 and positive 2. But we usually say that the negative belongs to the entire fraction and not just to the 3. You can belong to the 3, you can belong to the 2, but not to both, correct? So that's something that you need to remember. So for example, if you have m equal to negative 3 over 2, I can rewrite it as m equal negative 3 over positive 2, or I can rewrite it as m equal to 3 over negative 2. Do you agree that all three expressions are the same? Correct. But the negative cannot belong to both of them. Why not? Because negative divided by negative gives you a positive, and it should end up with a negative. Letter C. What is the slope of this line? The slope of a horizontal line is 0 slope. So therefore my slope is 0. It's undefined when there is a vertical line. Now, let's go and glue the next one right underneath. You should have enough space to paste it right underneath. So I'm going example number 2. You should have it ready to go. If not, just go and copy it down. Small grass should be fine. Now we're going to glue it. Once again, make sure you get the corners. And this is going to expedite our process. And make sure I get the corners. I notice this corner needs a little more glue. This one needs a little more glue. That one's... So make sure you get all your corners so that it doesn't fall off later. And last one. Excellent. So once again, we're going to find the slope. Now notice the difference. What's the difference between example 1 and example number 2? Correct. On example number 2, I did not give you all the points I give you on example number 1. It's just going to be a little bit more challenging. So what is the slope for this graph here? What happens when you have a vertical line? Correct. When you have a vertical line, your slope is undefined. So you don't have to, you just have to remember and memorize it, that in this case, my slope, and we're going to write down underneath, my slope is undefined. How about for the second one? For the second one of the things that you have to remember is that you have to select the points carefully. So if I zoom in to this one, let me see if I can zoom in pretty quickly. There you go. So I can select, I can use this point, not this point, because this point is not a corner point. Not this point, but this point. So I'm going to use this point here. And when you select your points, you have to be very careful. Not this one, not this one, but this one here. Do you see why? Or if you want to use not this one, but this one here is fine. And not this one, but this one's perfect. You get to decide which points you want. I usually prefer to use the one that's on the y-axis, and if it's going down, the one below it. Makes it a bit easier. So therefore, let's go and use those 2 points and see if you can find the slope. Remember that first you need to be able to decide, is it going to be positive slope or a negative slope? Correct, it's going to be a negative slope because the line is going down. If I write the word slope, so another way to think about it, if I write the word slope, the slope is going down. So if you write the word slope, it's going down, so therefore it's a negative slope. What is a fraction? How many times do I need to go down and to the right? 1, 2, 3. And to the right, 1. And we know that anything over 1 is just negative 3. 3 divided by 1 is negative 3. So therefore my slope, and let me write down right over here. My slope is negative 3. And I'm unboxing my answer. How about for the last one? Over the next letter C. What is the slope? My slope, let's see, positive or negative? What do you think? My slope is positive, correct? Because if I write the word slope on the line, let me write down the word slope. If I write the word slope, I know that's going up, so therefore my slope is positive. And I'm going to select 2 points. You can select any of the points that are there, but you want to be able to find a corner point. So let's see, let me zoom in. And this point is perfect. It crosses the y-axis. Not this point, not this point, not this point, but not this point. It's actually either that point or that point. You get to choose. Sometimes when they're so close, I meant it to be this point up here. So we have to be careful, right? So sometimes whenever I give the points, it's a little bit easier. Sometimes when you need to find them, it's like, okay, is it this point? And let's look at it more closely. There you go. Do you see how that one's kind of, it's almost there, but it's not. So therefore, my slope, how many times do I need to go up and how many times do I need to go to the right? Because it's positive, I'm gonna have to go up. 1, 2, 3, over. 1, 2, 3, 4. And can I reduce 3 over 4? No. So in this case, it's just positive 3 over 4. Perfect. So let's continue with example number 3. On example number 3, we're going to find the slope. So let's continue to the next page. Let's go and make our margin. Let's use 6 squares. Actually, for this I prefer to use 7. I have a little more space to write 2, 4, 6, 7. And then my ruler fits perfectly here. So that will do. And that is example number 3. On example number 3, we're going to find the slope given 2 points. We're going to do A, B, C, and D. So example number 3, find the slope. A. And they're going to give us 2 points. So instead of plotting them down, or giving us a graph, we actually have to use the formula to find the slope. 5, 1, and the second point is 1, negative 5. And then we'll do B right afterwards. Or letter B is going to be negative 4, comma, 4, and 2, negative 5. And now we're going to find the slope. We're going to use the slope formula that we have on the other side. This formula here is the one that we're going to use. Now, this is the difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. Notice that if they give us the graph, we can just do it graphically. Up into the right or down into the right. In this case, they only give us the location of the points. So what we're going to do, this is my x and this is my y. That is my x and this is my y. This is my first point, so that'll be 1, 1. This is my second point, so therefore it'll be 2, 2. And now we can use my slope formula to find the slope. So I'm going to set it up first. Same thing that we've been doing through most of the class. So I'll be m equals. I'll place a minus sign in between because that is the difference. First, y2 minus y1. So y2 is negative 5 minus y1, which is 1, over x2 over x1. x2 is 1, x1 is 5. So basically, I just find the difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. Same thing that we have over here. So right over here, we have the difference of the y. How much is the difference between this y and this y? That is what we have in this formula. Then to find this space, we do the difference between that y, x and this x, and that's what we have on the bottom part. Basically, just the difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. And now we simplify. So negative 5 minus 1 is negative 6. Remember, that negative belongs to the 1. Same thing on the bottom, 1 minus 5. This negative belongs to the 5. So that is 1 minus 5 is negative 4. Different signs, subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number. Negative divided by negative is going to be positive. So therefore my slope is going to be positive. I'm going to reduce it. 3 divided by 2 gives me 3. Divided by 2 gives me 2. Now for your slope, you don't want to change it to a mixed fraction. On your slope, you can just leave it as an improper fraction. That's much better for us. Let's try letter B. I'll place my slope and let me give myself a little more space. M equals. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set up my formula. So therefore, I'm going to place my minus in between. Because I'm going to subtract the y's and subtract the x's. And I'm going to label my x, y. X, y. That's my first point, so I'm going to place 1, 1. This is my second point, so I'm going to place 2, 2. And now I can find my slope. My slope is the difference of the y's, and we do y2 minus y1, which is 4. So notice that just by having the minus in between in red makes it much, much easier. x2 is 2. x1 is negative 4. And notice that I see a double negative. Do you guys remember what to do when you have a double negative? Correct. Change to a positive. That becomes a positive. So therefore we have negative 5 minus 4 is negative 9 over 2 plus 4 is 6. And now I can reduce it. What number divides 9 and 6? So let me rewrite underneath. M equals, I can divide by 3, so it gives me, well, negative divided by positive is going to be a negative. My slope will be negative. Over here, negative divided by negative was a positive because we're using a triangle. So negative divided by negative is going to be positive. On the second one, a negative divided by positive gives me a negative. So my slope will be negative. I'm going to divide by 3 gives me 3. Divide by 3 gives me a 2. Let's try 2 more. See, and D. For letter C, we have 3 and negative 6, and 7 and negative 4. And for letter D, we have negative 1 over 6 and negative 2 over 6. So go and pause it, see if you can find the slope, and then we can check our answers. Go and pause it, and then I'll help you out. So let's go through it. You got it? You paused it? You solved it? Okay. So in this case, I'm going to write down my m equals. I'm going to place my minus in between in red. I do want to be able to see your minus in between. That is part of the formula. It makes it easier. And now it's going to be y2 minus y1. y2 is negative 4. y1 is negative 6. Now x2 over x. Remember, your y's over your x's. The difference of the y's, repeat after me. The difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. That is your slope. x2 minus x1. I see a double negative once again. What happens with the double negative? It becomes a positive. And now I can simplify. Negative 4 plus 6 is 2. 7 minus 3 is 4. My slope is going to be positive. And what's 2 divided by 4? Well, the bigger number is on the denominator. So therefore it's going to be less than 1. I can reduce it by 2, gives me 1. Reduce it by 2, gives me 2. So 1 over 2. Perfect. Letter D. M equals. We'll place my line. And the first thing I'm going to do, place my minus in between. Because we're subtracting the y's and we're subtracting the x's. The difference of your y's, y2 minus y1. Now x2 minus x1. And once again, I see a double negative. What happens when we have a double negative? It becomes a positive. And now we have 6 minus 6 will give us 0. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. What's 0 divided by negative 1? Correct. It's no, it's not negative 1. It's 0. So in this case, it's 0. That means that your slope will be, it's a 0 slope, so your line will be a horizontal line. So whenever you have a 0 on the numerator, that gives you a horizontal line. Now, when do you end up with a undefined slope? If you had negative 1 over 0, when your zeros on the denominator, that makes it into undefined. And if you type into the calculator, notice that it's going to give you an error. But for now, let's continue with example number 4, and then example number 5, and we'll be done. On example number 4, we are going to give you a table of values. We have A and B. Find the slope. Make sure that you draw your line in between. And now I'm going to have my x and my y. And I need 4 numbers. So I'm going to actually make each part will be 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. That will work. I'm going to make a horizontal table. And every 2 will give you more space to write the numbers. So sometimes that's going to give you tables, and the first point is negative 2 and 0. So that is a point. Notice that we usually see it vertically. Well, the next one will draw it vertically. This is 1 and 1. The next point is 4 and 2. And the last point is 7 and 3. So that corresponds to a set of points. How many points do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. That last point, your x value is 7, your y value is 3. And we need to be able to find the slope. Now you can plot them and do it like we did on this examples, where we just did the triangle. So you can do it this way, where you place your x and your y, and then you do little bubbles to find the slope. Or we can actually just find the slope using the formula, and that's what we're going to do. So this is for A, and let's go and write the one for B. Now on this one, I'm going to place it vertically. And because with it vertically, I can just place one in each box. So this is your X, your input is your X, and your output is your Y. So for the next one, your first point is 2, 2. Your second point is 4, 1. Your third one is 6, 0. And the next one is 8, negative 1. And now I need to be able to find the slope for each one. So notice that there are just one horizontal table, one vertical, but it's the same thing. We have 4 points on each one. So to find the slope, you need to be able to decide which points are you going to use. So let me make some more space. I need to place one point here and the other point here. So which points do you want? And I'm going to circle 2. Does it matter which ones? No. Sometimes I like the ones that are all positive. So I like this number. 4, 2 is a good one. But if you're choosing 1, 1, that's perfectly okay. The next one I use 7, 3. So I usually like the ones that are positive, makes it a little bit easier for me. 7, 3. And now I'm going to find my slope. My process will be exactly the same that I had above, but now I need to find those 2 points. And now I can set up my equation. Let's see, y2 minus y1, the difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. y2 is 3, y1 is 2. x2 minus x1. Easy as that. So now we can actually simplify. So that gives me 3 minus 2 is 1. 7 minus 4 is 3. So my slope is 1 over 3. Cannot be simplified, cannot be reduced, and it's positive. I'll let you try the second one. Let's choose the points together so that way we get the same process. The answer will be the same. So if you want to choose the first one and the last one, you get the same answer. Or if you want to say the second one and the last one, you get the same answer. Or if you want the first one and the second one, you get the same answer. I might use the first one and second one. I think those are easier numbers to deal with. So therefore, my first point I'm going to use is 2, 2. And my second point is 4, 1. And now I'm going to use my equation. So let's go and write down the equation. M equals, it'll be the difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. So let me not forget to place them in red, my minus sign. That's very, very helpful. So the difference of the y's. y2, that's my second point. So I'll be y2 as 1, 2, over x2 minus x1. So if that's difficult for you, you can just write them right next to each other. Makes it a bit easier, correct? And now 1 minus 2 is negative 1. 4 minus 2 is 2. So therefore my slope, negative divided by positive is going to be a negative. 1 divided by 2 is just 1/2. Cannot be reduced, cannot be simplified. And the last example for today. The last example, you guys have the cutout. Makes it a little bit faster, easier. So let's go and glue it. Should be this one here. It says 3.2. I might use a separate piece of paper. I might use my scratch paper that I have before. Sometimes that makes it a little bit faster for me. And I guess I'll say, Diaz, hurry up. So let's see. Let's glue it here. And I use my little line. Example number 5. Go and pause it. If you need to copy it down, go and pause it, and now you can just make a quick sketch with a graph. Use your ruler and make it nice and box it in if you can. That'll be great. So let's go through the process. The graph shows a distance in y, in miles. So notice that the distance is your y, and it's labeled as mile, that the bus travel in X hours. So that means if we look at the graph carefully, so in this case, this is your x is 1. That means after 1 hour, it travels 60 miles. This is your x. That means after 1 hour, you travel, y is 120 miles. So each point corresponds to that information. Find and interpret the slope of the line. So one of the things that you have to remember is that your slope is the rate of change. So let's go and find the slope. M equals, and we don't need to rewrite the points. It's already given to me. I know that the second point will be this one, and this is my first point. So therefore, it'll be the difference of the y's. So y2 is 60 minus y1, which is 120. Or is it vice versa? Do you get the same answer? You actually get the same answer. So as long as you start the second time, you start with the same x1 minus 2. So let's check. If you did it differently, if by any chance I said, yes, that's not y1, that's y2. Well, that's not y2, it's y1. If we do it the other way, you have minus between. You say y2 is 120 minus y1 is 60. y2 is 2. Will it give you the same answer? Yes. And actually, this might be easier, correct? So that gives me negative 60 over negative 1. So therefore, my slope is 60 over 1, which is 60. If I had done it this way, this will be 60 over 1, which is the same answer. Well, most of the time I do prefer to do it this way. But either way, you get the same answer. So this is my slope. Can we interpret the slope? What does that mean? Now remember that it's over 1. So sometimes it's better to interpret it as a fraction because it's your rise over your run. What does the 60 correspond? Is your y value, which is your miles. And your 1 is your x value, which is your hour. So that means that the bus is traveling at 60 miles per hour. Per mile, notice that we don't write down per 1 mile, right? We usually just say per mile, but we do mean per every hour is traveling per hour, not per mile. Yes. So this is the last example for today. 60 miles per hour for every 1 hour. So please email me if you have any questions. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.